My name is Stanley Walton, and I'm 59 years old.
And your relationship to me?
This is my granddaughter, Angel.
Anastasia.
Okay, Anastasia.
Okay, the first question I'm going to ask you is about your early childhood and family background. When and where were you born?
I was born in 1958 in Mount Bayou, Mississippi.
Okay. What was that like?
Well, I was born in a county hospital. It was segregated. Only a black baby was born there, and it was subsidized by the state. I was the 11th of 13 children.
Tell me about your parents or your family background.
Well, my mother passed away when I was 3 years old, so I don't really know much about my mother, other than I have some pictures of her. My father, he was actually, when I was born, he was 61 years old. So my father was born in 1897 in Vicksburg, Mississippi. When he was 4 years old, he came down with spinal meningitis, and he lost his sense of hearing. And from 4 years old until he died at age 85, he was not able to hear. He was a blacksmith. He worked on a plantation, and until he was 75 years old, he fell through a two-story building from the ceiling and injured himself pretty badly. And he moved to Oakland, California, from a little small town called Estill, Mississippi.
And so did your family originate from Estill, Mississippi, or?
Well, my father, his family lived in Vicksburg, Mississippi. They were from Vicksburg, Mississippi. On my mother's side, they came from Alexandria, Louisiana, and moved to the small town of Hollandale, Mississippi.
What was your parents' religious background, and how was religion observed in your home?
Well, most folks down south, black people anyway, they are what we call missionary Baptists. So it's a very strict code of the Baptist religion. You go to church every Sunday, you're in church all day. You were not allowed to do anything on Sunday but attend services. Couldn't cook, couldn't iron, couldn't play sports outside. You couldn't do anything but go to church. So they were very devout Christians.
What were your parents' political beliefs? Were they involved in any political organizations?
Well, my grandmother was, as you know, most of the black people in the South were Democrats. And it wasn't so much liberal as it was Democrats. And my grandmother, she was a civil rights leader. So she participated in all of the civil rights movement down in the South. She really worked close with Medgar Evers, who was a great civil rights leader in the South. And she was instrumental in integrating the public school system in the town we lived in of Hollandale, Mississippi.
What was it like in the school that you grew up in?
Well, I went to two schools. First, I went to the black school because the town was segregated. You had the white school and the black school. And I went to the black school. It was very rigid, very strict. There was corporal punishment. Most of your corporal punishment was done with a fan belt out of a vehicle. Then we went over to the white school, where even in the classroom it was segregated. Black kids were not allowed to mingle with white kids in no way whatsoever. And there was corporate punishment, but only for black kids, not for the white kids.
And you also went to school in Oakland, so how was that different?
I did.
Like,
well,
comparing the two?
When we moved to Oakland, actually, going to school, I thought I had died and went to heaven. It was so different. First of all, there was no corporate punishment. Secondly, you didn't have to go to class if you didn't want to. Thirdly, the classes was just more liberal and free, and you was allowed to relax and feel like a student more so than like you was in captive or prison as it was opposed to going to school down south.
What do you remember about your grandparents?
Well, my grandfather, he was a big, prominent Baptist minister in the South. And in those days, back in the 60s, 50s and 60s, you only went to church one Sunday in a month. So my grandfather had 5 churches that he pastored because he pastored at a different church every Sunday. And some churches he doubled up on one particular Sunday. My grandmother, she married my grandfather when she was 14 years old. She really didn't have a formal education other than 8th grade. When she was in her late 50s, she went back to school and got her GED and also continued her schooling and got her college degree.
What did she get her degree in?
It was like social work, I believe it was. I know it was working with kids.
Did you hear any stories, like you know how you would tell me stories about your grandmother, but I never was able to meet her? Have you heard any stories about like people in your family who you never met? Like any interesting stories?
Yes, I have. Actually, I never met my grandmother. She had a brother named Stucky. And they would tell us that Uncle Stucky was always the problem child. He was the oldest, but he would always manage to get them in trouble. And as you can imagine, back in 1906 and 1908, it didn't take much to get in trouble. But they would always tell us he was always up to mischief. He would get them in trouble and cause all of them to get a whooping.
What were your siblings like, and who were you the closest to?
Well, like I said, I have 12 siblings, and they were all different in a way, and we was all alike in a way. We all looked out for each other. We all helped each other, and I was closest to my brother Caesar, and I didn't realize it actually until we became adults how close I was to him, and it was a really unique and wonderful relationship.
What were your duties around the house as a child? What were the other children's duties, and how did you break down by gender?
Well, first of all, there wasn't no such thing as gender. Whether you were boy or girl, male or female, we all did the same thing. First of all, everybody had a day to cook. Secondly, we all washed clothes with a scrub board and a big tin tub. We all hung clothes out on the clothesline, the tree limb, the fence line, where we could hang them out. We all had a room to clean up. So the rule of thumb was for cleaning up the room. Whoever got up first was the first one to pick a room to clean up. And by the end of the rooms, that last person had the most difficult room to clean, which was the kitchen. We all took time cutting the grass. At that time, there wasn't any lawnmowers, so you had a swing blade. So you took the swing blade, you went outside, and you cut the grass. If it was along the house line, you used a hoe to chop the grass from around the house line.
What did you mostly do? What did you find yourself mostly doing?
Most time I found myself doing the living room and washing clothes.
What was your family's economic circumstances?
Well, there's a saying that you can be poor or you can be po. Poor is P-O-O-R, po is P-O. We never got to the O-R. We ate good meat, but it was meat that you hunted. So we ate rabbit, squirrel, coon, raccoon, venison, pheasant, quail, things like that, and that's because we hunted it. Every now and then someone would give us a chicken. We'll take the chicken, wring the neck, pluck the feathers, boil the chicken, and we had a chicken. We'll go down to the creek, catch fish, crawdads. We had about 1 acre of land that we used for a garden. We grew everything that we ate too. There was very, very little shopping in supermarkets.
And like speaking of just shopping and stuff, When did you learn, like, what age did you learn how to cook and who taught you? And, like, what's some foods that you will always have? Like, you know?
Well, I think I probably started cooking around between 9 and 10 years old. And you learn by just watching other people. And mostly all of us learned by watching our grandmother cook. She did most of the cooking around the holidays, but during the week, like I said, everybody had a day to cook. So you learn from them how to cook.
What was your favorite meal as a child?
My favorite meal as a child was spaghettis and weenies, because that was something we got to buy at the store. We didn't have to eat like deer, rabbit, squirrel, or fish, or greens out of the garden.
And describe the house you grew up in and describe your room.
Well, the house I grew up in, because my father was this big prominent Baptist minister, it was considered a grand house. It was a big white house. It had a formal dining room, kitchen, a living room, had one bathroom for about 15 people. Don't know how we did it, but we did it. And we had 4 bedrooms. So I didn't have a bedroom. I did have a bedroom with 5 other brothers, and we made it work.
What activities did you do with the family?
Most activities I did with my sibling was we rode tires, we raced on tom walkers that we made, and we made bow and arrows, and we would play cowboy and Indian with the bow and arrows. So that's kind of like what I did with my younger brothers. As a family, the big day was the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. That was a time when we really got together and we ate really well and we all celebrated together.
Did you or anyone close to you serve in the war? What do you remember from that experience?
Well, my stepfather, he served in the Navy on a ship during World War II. My uncle, my sister's brother, he served in the Navy during World War II. My youngest uncle, he served in the Korean War and the Vietnam War. I was the next person in my family to join the military, and I served in the invasion of Panama, Grenada, Iraq, and Somalia.
What made you want to join the army?
Well, my uncle that was in the army that served in Korea and Vietnam. When we moved to Oakland, he was stationed down in Fort Ord, about 140 miles south of Oakland. We would go down in the summer to visit, and I saw all these guys on the base. They had nice cars, rode around on motorcycles. I thought they were rich, and I said, I got to join the military. And that really is what prompted me to join the service.
How would you say the world has changed since you were young?
It has changed tremendously. When I was young, houses was made with a doorknob, not a doorknob with a lock to it, just a doorknob to open the door. You could leave your doors open. People were friendly, neighborly. There was virtually no crime. A lot of respect and honor for your elders. The air was clean, the water was clean. We were poor, but there was enough for everybody. And now today, if someone would have told me when I was a kid that we would be living in the world we live in today, I could never believe it.
And now we're in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Can you tell me how you got here, from Mississippi all the way to?
Well, I moved from Mississippi to Oakland. I joined the Army, and one of my duties assignment was to be stationed at Fort Snelling, a small little base in the Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities area. So I was stationed here. I retired out of the service here, and we decided to stay here. And we stayed here because of the very good school systems, very safe neighborhoods, low crime, very good jobs, very good paying jobs, and the quality of life is second to none.
How old were you when you moved to Oakland, and how old were you when you moved here?
I moved to Oakland when I was 13 years old, and I moved here when I was in my 40s, about 41.
And for the last question I'm going to ask you, what has provided you the greatest satisfaction in life?
I wouldn't have never thought that the greatest satisfaction in life for me would be my grandchildren. You can't explain it. If you have grandchildren, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you'll just have to wait. It's unexplainable. But there's no greater joy that I've ever had in my entire life than having my grandchildren.
So that's all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do I get paid?